And joining us now on the line from Washington, D.C., the journalist Philip Smucker. How are you tonight, Philip?
I'm great. Thank you very much.
Good to have you there on the line with us. I want you to start by painting a picture for our viewers of what the infrastructure, and I guess in particular the road situation, was like in Afghanistan right around the time of 9/11, 2001.
Okay, right. At the infamous Battle of Tora Bora, where we broke the story on bin Laden's escape, the roads were almost non-existent, except for the main road that led through the Khyber Pass from Peshawar. So we rode in with some of the warlords at that point through the Khyber Pass on a pockmarked road full of holes from bombs, just a main highway that took really about 8 hours to get to Kabul on, if you were lucky, because the snow was always quite bad and the icy passes, mountain passes. But that road has been significantly improved now. The situation is not quite as dire as it was on the main road. And then there were no smaller roads at all, almost non-existent. The desert was used if it was a flatland. If it wasn't, it was dirt roads winding up almost impassable by cars.
I think my favorite quote of the piece you wrote in Atlantic Monthly recently about this issue, the piece was called Asphalt Dreams, was this one here. NATO allies squabble over many things, but on one they all agree. If Afghanistan is ever to be secure, prosperous, and cohesive, it must first be paved. Now that's something we don't hear a lot about. We hear a lot about the military, we hear a lot about the social, we don't hear a lot about the paving. Why do you think in the short run, paving more of the country would make such a difference?
Well, it's a strange situation there, because on the one hand, Afghanistan has always defended itself almost by its remoteness. In other words, the lack of roads going into the country in some ways left it isolated enough that it became unified as a country inside those isolated boundaries, and very few conquerors were able to easily access the country, including, of course, Alexander the Great, who was very distressed as he left the country and commented that the roads were so poor. But there were other people, Tamerlane, that they were actually handed down through the mountain passes in these large kind of baskets that would swing you through the crevice and take you over the rushing water and then set you down on the other side. So this is the Hindu Kush, and the recent trip that I was on and the story that I wrote in the Atlantic Monthly was specifically to do with the Hindu Kush, that area of Afghanistan which is most inaccessible.
But why would paving it make a difference to our efforts in Afghanistan?
Well, there are roads now going up, for instance, from Jalalabad, which is the capital of Kandahar. There's a road that goes up to Asadabad now. So that road we traveled up on to see a prison camp before the Battle of Tora Bora, and it was a dirt road only. Now that road connects to Asadabad, which is the capital of another province called Kunar, which is arguably one of the most embattled provinces for the Americans. Logistically, for the peacekeeping forces, but more importantly, for the economy of the country and to connect people. So these roads, arguably in some cases, are being built in a military and a strategic sense for NATO forces. On the other hand, they're there for the Afghans to create economic prosperity. And if you'll remember that the first big road project was the road from Kabul down to Kandahar. That road's complete, very expensive road, very dangerous now still, and there's a lot of looting, there's a lot of highway jacking, people, truck drivers losing their lives. But that said, the Afghans are very brave, and they've increased their economic output significantly. One of the untold stories of Afghanistan today is the economic prosperity, the comeback, if you will. I wouldn't yet call it prosperity, but there's been a comeback, and it's been mainly on the back of those roads that have connected people.
Philip, what's the ring road?
The ring road is the ring road is originally begun actually in the old Soviet era, and it was envisioned as a way to connect all the different ethnic groups to if you will, in our nation's capital here in Washington, we have what we think is a ring road, but this is a ring road around the entire country. So it goes all the way around every province and intersects every ethnic group. So it's only recently been completed, and there's a small section up near the Iranian border which is yet to be finished. But that said, it's also well traversed, often just by caravans and camels, but it is the road that connects all of Afghanistan.
And when do they expect it to be completed?
It should be completed, I believe the target date is 2010, and that could be put off. There is new fighting in an area of Afghanistan we hadn't thought there would be any fighting at all, north of Herat, in that corridor along the Iranian border south of Turkmenistan. So there's actually, as these roads are expanding, there's more fighting. So it's not a panacea. It's not going to in the end end the war. It's going to connect people. It's going to allow the Afghan security forces as well to connect in emergencies with each other, because obviously you can't have a national army if you can't race them to an emergency and get them involved in something that's happening. So these roads are strategic, and yet I think personally that the main value is economic, and that the courage of the truck drivers proves the point that, you know, the trucking is supposed to pick up by 200–300% in the next 10–20 years. So we'll see if that comes along, but the roads will certainly be there to allow that to happen.
Okay, I understand the strategic military argument. I understand the economic argument. I understand the argument about connecting people better within the borders of the country. But is there also not an argument to be made that the drug and opium production and the transmission of it to the rest of the world would also be enhanced if this ring road is completed and becomes as good as people hope it will be?
Well, I think that's already true. But logically, it's hard to make the connection that roads are going to increase the drug trade. You know, frankly, if we leave Afghanistan isolated and remote, they've got plenty of camels to carry this stuff out on. So I wouldn't say that specifically. Now, as far as the opium business goes, that's one of the things that we need to tackle. The Americans obviously have a very different plan than the Europeans, and I think the Canadians and the Senless Council, in fact, disagrees vehemently with the American approach. But I think there's an effort here, if you will, to by some people that are focused on roads to say, here's something the West does well. We can't create schools for all the children in Afghanistan. We can't necessarily create gender equality. We can't necessarily create a democratic government functioning in every province, but we can do something well with our engineers, with our civil engineers. And now these are military engineers. Remember that a lot of the NGOs won't work in a country like Afghanistan, so it becomes necessary to concentrate on the things you do well. The American military happens to do roads incredibly well. I mean, I can vouch for that. I mean, historically we've done them well. My father, in fact, built roads in Europe after World War II. But we've seen that the American military is often not very good at this thing called quote-unquote nation building, and yet they're very good at road building. So let's do what we do well, and let's do it better than you know, anybody else, and have that as a benefit, a lasting benefit to the Afghan people.
And how have the Taliban reacted to this increase in American road construction?
Well, they've beheaded people. They consider the roads are like, you know, the equivalent of a slap in the face. They don't like girls' schools. They don't like roads. They don't like progress. So the fact that they behead some of the construction workers and leave a note next to them saying that this is what will happen to you if you build roads for the Americans is to be expected. And I think that it comes with the effort that's going ahead. Yet this is classic guerrilla warfare. Guerrillas like remote terrain. When their terrain becomes less remote, they're going to be in trouble, because it'll be easier for the government forces, the Afghan military, which is now coming online, to move to locations where they have insurgent activity, and the roads will enhance their mobility.
How well have the troops been able to protect those who are building the roads?
Well, that's been a mixed bag, and they've been able to do it, and I would say they're walking a fine line there, if you will, because they have to, on the one hand, build these roads, and they're doing it with American military engineering know-how, and yet when they build the road, they're trying to make it an Afghan effort. In other words, the contractor is an Afghan team, and then the contractor himself will then have often his own security for that road. So it's self-contained in that the Americans really don't want to be involved like overlords overseeing a road crew, like a chain gang as is building a road. They'd rather that the Afghans be there defending the road, because it gives them a sense of ownership and allows them the idea that they're defending their own road. This is for their own community, and it's something that's not for the Americans in a strategic sense. But it's of course, it's very hard to get around the fact that, you know, a foreign military occupying another country that's building roads is perceived as having a strategic interest. So you've got to at least stand above the fray to the extent that you're going to allow the Afghans to do it and allow the Afghans to defend the roads themselves.
Let me get you to talk about, I guess, what is one of the most dangerous borders in the world right now, and that is the 1,400 miles of border between Pakistan and Afghanistan. What would functioning roads with greater efficiency do to and for that border?
Well, as you know, the insurgents are consisting mainly of the Pashtun ethnic group, which is at least 2/3 on the Pakistani side of the border. The Durand Line, which is basically a British concept created to please the interest of the Raj, divides that ethnic group. Now, if those people are connected and they have a thriving economy, and we know they're good traders already, presumably some of their grievances will be taken care of. Now, that's not assured, but it also allows, in theory, if the Pakistanis come online and start going against the al-Qaeda resurgence in their own country, a connection of security forces on both sides. If in fact you have a democratic regime that's up and coming in Pakistan, hopefully maybe within the next 2 or 3 years, and the same thing conceivably happening in Afghanistan, the roads will mesh and intersect people with like-minded interests, which is you know, a thriving economy, people allowed to cross borders as a kind of a European situation, and people allowed to defend themselves against terrorism. So in theory, that's the idea. Now, does it work? It's really down to eliminating, in my view, the sanctuaries in Pakistan.
Do you think, based on, I mean, you've been to the region many times, spent a lot of time there, so let me get you to both opine and speculate as to whether you think the Karzai government and the local population support what is essentially foreigners paving their country. What do you think of that?
I think the Afghans see a Western effort in total disarray. I think the best reading on this is Ahmad Rashid's book, Descent into Chaos. We've seen since 9/11, since the initial invasion, since the initial Bush administration basic contention that this is mission accomplished, a complete deterioration of Afghanistan. And the Afghans are at a loss to understand how 50 to 60,000 armed men from foreign countries could have created a situation that's deteriorating in such a way. The massive aid that was promised to the country has not been distributed. It's been used up by, frankly, if I don't say so, Western aid workers that are getting rich off of this humanitarian business in Kabul and who don't go out to the provinces. Now, take a step back and think of the province that doesn't get any help from the Western world that was once promised to that province. They're desperate for communication. They're desperate to increase their own economy with their own bare hands. And if they see a road, that's something tangible, something they're going to have, something that foreigners are not going to be able in the end to take away from them. So I think it is concretely something tangible for people in the hinterlands to understand and to be happy with. And I don't think they're going to praise the Western governments for doing this, because frankly, the rest of the operation has been completely, it's gone against what we would have imagined was possible. It's a disaster. We've seen the Taliban basically living off the false promises of the West. In other words, the West promises one thing, the Taliban say we can't deliver, we don't deliver, and the Taliban says, I told you so. Now, why are the Taliban fighting so hard to keep these roads out? Because these are something real, something that goes in to the remote areas to connect people, to get people to a clinic faster, to get them, to get their wife down the hill. If she's pregnant, they don't have to run her down the hill in a wheelbarrow. They can actually get her into a taxi and drive her to the clinic.
Philip, it's awfully good of you to join us on the line from Washington and help us with this tonight. Thanks so much.